Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. It started out of nowhere. One evening, my husband, Ryan, declared he was getting into shape. I joined a gym, he announced over dinner. I almost choked on my food. Ryan? The same man who refused to take the stairs instead of the elevator? But I didn't question it. Maybe it was a midlife crisis. Or maybe he was just trying to be healthy. Weeks passed, and I expected changes. But Ryan still looked exactly the same. Same belly, same eating habits. Muscle weighs more than fat, he'd joke when I asked about his progress. He went to the gym almost every evening, yet he never seemed sore or tired. Something felt off. One night, while Ryan was at the gym, I got curious. I opened the location tracker on his phone, something we had set up years ago for safety. My heart stopped. He wasn't at the gym. In fact, he had never been there. His location showed somewhere else entirely. A place I didn't recognize. I zoomed in on the map. It wasn't a restaurant, a park, or an office. It was a random residential street, far from our home. My stomach twisted. Who lived there? What was he doing? My mind raced with possibilities, but I needed proof. I had to see it for myself. The next evening, I pretended to have plans with a friend. Instead, I drove straight to the address. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I parked a few houses down. I watched. I waited. And then, I saw him, my husband, walking toward a house like he belonged there. Ryan walked up to the door with ease. No hesitation, no looking around nervously. He knocked, and within seconds, the door swung open. A woman stood there. She smiled at him. My heart pounded as he stepped inside, the door shutting behind him. What was this place? Who was she? I sat frozen in my car, staring at the house. Was this an affair? A secret second life? My head spun with possibilities. I wanted to march up and demand answers, but I held back. If I was going to confront Ryan, I needed more than just suspicion. I waited outside for what felt like forever. Every minute that passed made my stomach churn. What was he doing in there? Why would he lie about the gym? When I checked the time, I realized he had been inside for almost 2 hours. He never spent that long, working out. I couldn't sit there all night. If he saw my car, he'd know something was up. With a deep breath, I drove home. But sleep was impossible. My mind kept replaying the moment he stepped inside. I needed to find out more before I confronted him. The next morning, I searched his gym bag while he was in the shower. No workout clothes, no towel, not even a water bottle. Instead, I found something odd, an envelope with cash inside. Why would he need cash for the gym? Unless he wasn't going to the gym at all. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that day, while Ryan was in the kitchen, I decided to take a look at his phone. It wasn't the first time I'd checked, but this time I needed to know everything. The message history stood out, texts to someone named L, full of laughing emojis and flirty comments. Who was L? The more I read, the more my suspicions grew. Ryan had been lying, and it wasn't just about the gym. The texts made it clear that L wasn't just a friend. They talked about meeting up and going places. Suddenly, it all clicked. Ryan had been sneaking around. But with who? I decided to call in reinforcements. I shared what I found with my best friend, Emily. She was as shocked as I was. You need to confront him, she advised. But I wasn't sure I was ready. What if the truth was even worse than I imagined? What if he was living a life I knew nothing about? I couldn't wait any longer. The unknown was driving me crazy. The next evening, I decided to follow him. This time, I'd catch him in the act. I left work early, parked down the street from the mysterious house, and waited. This time, I wasn't just going to watch from afar. I needed answers. Ryan walked up to the same house, but this time I was closer, hidden behind a tree. I held my breath as the door opened. Only it wasn't the same woman. It was a man. I watched in shock as they hugged each other, and my heart sank. Ryan wasn't going to a gym. He was seeing someone else. I sat frozen in my car, my mind racing. The man who Ryan had embraced wasn't just a friend. It was something deeper. I had been lied to, but now I had confirmation. My husband wasn't just keeping a secret. He was hiding a part of his life from me that I couldn't have imagined in my worst nightmares. Ryan returned home a little later than usual. He seemed normal, almost too normal. He didn't seem guilty at all. But I knew. I knew everything. I felt like I was living in a world that wasn't mine anymore. I waited for him to say something, anything, but he just kissed me on the cheek and went about his evening as if nothing had changed. The next day, while we were having lunch, I decided to ask him about his gym routine. How's your workout going? I said casually. He looked at me, a little surprised. Same as usual, he replied. You know, lifting, cardio, the works. My stomach churned. He was lying straight to my face. I couldn't just confront him without knowing the full truth. I followed him again, but this time, I made sure to stay out of his sight. I watched as he entered the same house and stayed there for hours. When he left, I noticed something odd. His gym bag was nowhere to be seen. It was clear he had never been to the gym. That night, I finally snapped. I waited until Ryan was lounging on the couch, watching TV, and then I sat down next to him. I know about the gym, I said, my voice shaking. Ryan's eyes widened. What do you mean? He asked, playing dumb. I took a deep breath. You've been lying to me, Ryan. I know where you've really been. Ryan's face turned pale, his eyes darting nervously. You're mistaken, he said quickly, his voice cracking. It's not what you think. But I could see through him. His words didn't match his body language. The guilt was written all over him. I pressed on. I know about the house, and I know about the messages. Ryan went silent, his eyes avoiding mine. I could see the weight of the truth pressing down on him. It's not what you think, he muttered again, but this time his voice was weaker. I never meant to hurt you. His eyes were pleading, but I couldn't forgive him. Not yet. Not after everything. Ryan sighed heavily, finally slumping back into the couch. I was afraid to tell you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The gym, it was my escape. I needed a way to clear my head. I waited, my heart pounding. This wasn't just about the gym. But what about the man? I asked, my voice steady but full of pain. He hesitated before answering. He's someone I've been seeing. I didn't know how to tell you. My whole world seemed to fall apart in that moment. I had suspected something was off, but hearing him admit it out loud was devastating. You've been seeing him behind my back. I whispered. Ryan's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I never meant to betray you, but I felt trapped. I needed someone who understood me. My heart broke. How long had this been going on? As Ryan's words hung in the air, I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. My mind raced with emotions, hurt, betrayal, confusion. He wasn't just lying about the gym. He had been living a double life. And now, I had to decide whether I could ever trust him again. After Ryan's confession, the house was thick with silence. I couldn't bring myself to speak. I needed time to process everything. Ryan kept trying to talk, apologize, explain himself, but I couldn't focus on his words. All I could hear was the lie, the deceit, echoing in my head. The more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. Ryan hadn't just been seeing this man casually. He had been in a relationship with him. We've been meeting for months, Ryan finally admitted. He's the one I'm really in love with. My chest tightened as the words sank in. I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was a woman who had been living a lie for years. I couldn't keep living like this. The truth hurt too much. I had loved Ryan, trusted him, built a life with him. But now, I realized I couldn't stay in a marriage where love had been replaced with lies. I can't do this anymore, I whispered. Ryan's face twisted in shock, but I couldn't stay and let him continue hurting me. That night, I packed my things. It felt surreal. This was my life, but it no longer felt like mine. I could hear Ryan's voice calling out, begging me to stay, but I couldn't look back. I had to leave. The woman who had loved him was gone, and in her place was a woman who was stronger, wiser, and ready to move on. It wasn't easy to walk away, but I knew it was the right choice. I found a new sense of freedom, a space where I could breathe without the constant weight of betrayal. Ryan had lied, but I refused to let his actions define me. I was stronger than I had ever known, and the future ahead, though uncertain, was mine to build. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you like the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.